Well, I'm glad you want to test other AI solutions, Joe, but we got to talk about it live because our team, our group is waiting for us. Are you ready, Joe?
Yeah, I'm ready.
You ready? How is it going, brother? We are back. Hey, dude, you're always excited and like so pumped up to be here. And I am so proud to say that this is 5 weeks in a row. 5 weeks in a row, we are hitting one of the things I know we wanted to improve on is consistency, and here we are. Yes, so, dude, I'm excited about that, dude. How have you been?
Yeah, man, me too. I am very, very excited. As you said, 5 weeks in a row. Last week we almost didn't make it. Right? We had some issues, but eventually we did it, and I am very happy that it's still August. So the whole month, and hopefully we are going to get through September too. We already have a lineup of guests, and yeah, man, very, very excited to just keep going, keep pushing, keeping the momentum, right?
Absolutely, dude. I think that's one of the beautiful things too, is just like the momentum that we're starting to build. And it's one thing when you're kind of pumped up about your own stuff, right? Who wouldn't? Like you don't pursue anything unless you're excited about it, right? But when I start getting the sense or this feeling, this gut feeling, and getting feedback that people are liking it, right? And that they're like, hey, dude, I like what you're doing. Like that just like lights this insatiable fire inside of me, man. It just makes me want to go like, 10x, right? But all the good things come. So I feel it too. I feel it. And just speaking of that, I love to dive in. What a great guest last week, right? Mukesh was here. Those topics were incredible. He's got in.
A great guy and such an enjoyable conversation. He's so awesome. He has this incredible following, and still he's very humble. And he comes down to your level. Technically speaking, he can describe things in a way that even amateur would understand, right? So yeah, I enjoyed very much that conversation. Definitely, 100%.
Absolutely. And what he's doing for the community in terms of interview mock-ups that he helps prep with, and it's just really good, right? It's a selfless service to people interested in getting into this space. I know he's dedicated too. And it's that kind of motivation too that gets me excited as well and what's happening in that area. And that's part of the reason, right? Turns out that after we had this conversation, I was so impressed with Mukesh's knowledge and desire to kind of push the field forward, that he mentioned he was going to forward as well, right? There's a double entendre there.
Yep.
But when I realized this, I extended him an offer and we had a conversation, and it just got approved today. So he'll actually be one of the instructors to the Tech Ed session that I'm hosting. So we're going to co-host. Yeah, him and I will be co-hosting one of the Tech Ed sessions. So I really look forward to taking sort of my idea and then now bringing on someone of Mukesh's caliber to, kind of brainstorm against and improve it so we get a really good product. And the room fits like 70 people, right? Hopefully we only get like 10 because I don't want to be nervous. But, it's going to be exciting.
Do you need help with cleaning or just organizing chairs or stuff like that? Because I will be there, so I can be your rookie.
I knew what you were going with that. That's why I had a little giggle right there, right? But no, bro, if you are available, you'll be doing far more than that. I don't have the details on when that session will occur, but I know Tech Ed's on the back end of Forward, right? And so I know that, depending on if you're able to get down there and attend, and then depending on what day it is, right? I know not everybody can stay for the whole event, but yeah, no, 200%, dude. I'm excited for any collaboration. I'll need help. She told me, the person I'm coordinating it with, she said that I'm also to assist managing a big goblin group of 70. She said I'll be given 1 to 2 product managers. So that's the last. Have you trained a big group on UiPath before?
I did some online sessions, but it was more I do and you see. Not like you follow along.
Yeah.
So I know it's complex to have people following along what you are doing, and then you have to stop and help them and see where they are at. And that's very, very complex.
Especially even when you are building a simple solution, right? There's varying levels of skill when it comes to people with software. Right? Even if it's drag and drop and low and no code, like the tools that we work with every day. So you're absolutely spot on. And that's some of the nuances. I did once in my career help UiPath train large groups. These were groups of 30, 40 people. I have a picture off to share on social. And what we would do is we would go in there and we did everything. It was an entire business process. We trained them on how to take inputs from an email that had Excels, and basically what you were doing, you were processing promotions, onboarding, and terminations of employees. So they were mixed in this log file, and you had to basically sort the data set, and then depending on how you identified it, process accordingly. And, it could be something just setting up the config file, something as simple as setting up the config file, and, half of the classes got it, and then half of the classes, how do I open an Excel? And so when you have that varying levels of skill, so it'll be exciting. I think it's also a challenge, right? It kind of makes sure you're on your stuff. So
and then someone will forget a comma on the config file, and it's gonna work. You have to stop everything for 10 minutes just to find out that there was a missing comma. No, I get your point. It's really tough.
That's good.
Are you going to have like virtual machines where everybody's going to download from somewhere and then they are going to sign up for this lab environment?
Great question. So if you're listening to this podcast or the show live and you're going to be attending Forward, or you hear this later, what's going to happen is that the participants will bring their own laptops. They've been instructed in this if you've signed up for any of the Tech Ed sessions, but there will be a hosted UiPath cloud environment for them to tap into for the training. So they'll be able to access UiPath and download. There should be minimal headwind to try to just get them at least up and running. And plan. Yeah, it's only I think it was like an hour or 2 hour long session, right? So it's not, I think it's hour. So if you only I've never seen you before and I got to teach you something in an hour, that scope is and it's a group, the scope is incredibly limited, right? You got to keep it super narrow. So they'll be bringing their own laptops. All they got to do is have a laptop. We should have internet connection, and you'll be able to have instructions on, probably have QR codes where you can download or however they organize it.
I know that every software is able to do that, right? And I already did some tests on UiPath where I would just sign in using Chrome I would sign into a lab environment. Everything was already there.
Yeah.
Just had to open up studio and then get started. So that's probably the most. Uh, how can I say? It's advisable, not advisable, but
Yeah,
it's the most.
I think it's like the best path
Okay,
forward too. And speaking of that, I just had this idea too, right? I'd already been planning to create like a PDD for the process, right? And the GitHub repository. I have some of the stuff already there, but I wanted to also create like whatever we decide to actually do for the session, create like the automation and then be able to have them at least download a copy from the beginning. So if nothing else, they have sort of a carbon copy, and as they're building, they can just open it and then reference that build. So while we teach them, I just thought of this because of what you said. You think that's probably a smart idea? I think that would probably be good. I know we're brainstorming on the podcast. I love it. That's what Bots Over Beers does.
I remember one day I was in a session online, and no, it was in person. So probably 20, 30 people, and my plan was I'm gonna create this automation very simple using the Acme website from UiPath.
Yes.
It would sign in, type here and there, download reports, create merge files, and I had 1 hour, and my plan was I'm gonna create on the spot, showing them. I'm not going to ask them to follow along.
Yeah.
But I want to create this whole automation from 0 to 100%.
Done. Yeah.
And I planned. Luckily for me, I planned ahead, right? So I created 1 or 2 days before. I ran through the use case. I did everything just to make sure that it would fit in 1 hour, and also to make sure that it would work. But then I saved that project. During the session, something went wrong. I took to a specific step, and then it couldn't go further. My time was over. In the end, I just said, well, it should work, but it's not working. But here it is a version that is working. So you can take this and check and see how this looks like.
Nice. It's funny you mentioned that, because just recently I was attending the AI engineering, or there's a user group for AI learning that UiPath was partnering with recently, and I attended one of their events. And the gentleman up on top, he was using different large language models like Hugging Face, and he was basically, what he was doing is he was using UiPath to read a resume and basically identify whether the person was a nutritionist or like a trainer, like a gym trainer. And it was using language models to kind of figure that out and, and slide, basically categorize the groups correctly. And what it did, as he tried to do it, like he had already kind of had it built, but he was doing what you were doing, where he was kind of, building it live, and it had it connected to his like G drive, right? Anyway, long story short, like while he's doing it, like when he's on the UiPath tutorial part, like he can't get it to work. It's like it's executing. There's errors everywhere, and I felt bad because this gentleman, he's not he's an instructor for like AI, right? He doesn't do like UiPath, but they're a partnership. He included in the training. Russell had made the training to plan, right, the whole solution, and so I think what he thought is he could kind of try to build the same thing, because he looked at the copy, thought he could build it, and then of course it was airing out all over the place, and so he tried his best to give a solid UiPath demo using language models, and he was like, let me just run this one. This one will work. So yeah, I feel like everybody does it. Everybody's been there.
Yeah, teaching on the spot, live on the spot, is incredibly difficult if you are creating something from scratch.
Yeah,
you have to prepare yourself before, indeed.
So true.
And be prepared for every scenario, right? The initial ones we were talking, someone is not just getting the file, or it's missing something, or you miss something and you cannot find the problem.
Yeah.
That's probably the worst.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, dude. Those scenarios are the worst, and I've been in that situation too, right? Part of that book story and one I'll tell on show one day is about my first training experience. So like I boasted myself a little bit, right, saying I worked with UiPath in person doing training workshops and I mean, everybody knows it's a pretty decent deal. But let's just say for a story for another time is the very first one, ass. It was dumpster juice, and I was leading it, and I had a next session the very next day, and so there was no like, hey, just repeat what you did yesterday, right? And there absolutely no, and it turned into a really good redemption story. So I'll save that for another show. I don't want to triple tap on our bad training experiences and ruin our credibility before we get to our 13th episode.
So let's just change a little bit the topics.
Yeah,
if we don't want to go on that route. I was telling you a little bit on the side, but I wanted to say for this actual session.
Yeah,
man, I got so pumped this week because actually it was yesterday. 3 friends of mine, one living in Portugal, another living in Brazil, another living here in Canada.
Yeah,
everybody reached out to me, giving some feedbacks on our show, and I was so pumped because 2 of them, like I thought, it has been a little while that I haven't talked to them, right?
Yeah. Oh,
and dude. All of a sudden I'm getting messages from them. So first of all, it's helping to connect with my friends, right?
That's beautiful, dude.
And then these guys reaching out and giving feedbacks, positive.
That's great.
Feedback.
I love it.
And that just made my day. I felt so awesome, so happy not because
it's not like the recognition led to joy. It's just when you reconnect and yeah, exactly.
So it was a very amazing feeling, very subtle, but very amazing. And I just gave that boost. Oh, no, we have to keep this going. We have to keep pushing forward and improving ourselves, improving the overall quality of the show. So that was really awesome.
Yeah.
Another one that was interesting because I wasn't expecting at all. So my older brother, I was talking to him on the phone over the weekend, and he just out of the blue, by the way, I was listening to your podcast and I didn't know you had ADHD.
Dude.
Remember one of the first episodes we were talking about that I was describing how my moving was.
Yeah.
I had ADHD and I didn't know you had that. And while I was listening to you, I thought, I think I also have this.
Yeah. Dude, I'm so I will be completely transparent with you, Joe. Like there is a part of me that is so paranoid that I'm going to blurt out something that's like far more, personal about myself, like that I do that because we just start talking and we open up. So dude, that's so funny that, like the subtle things that people catch. I mean, first of all, thank you so much to your friends too. And, the people that you're, have relationships with that listen to our show, right? I swear, Joe and I will back this up. We'll continue to improve, continue to give interesting stories, bring on interesting guests. But again, you just telling me that we started off the show and I was pumped up, dude. What are you trying? I'm going to get too much gas, right? I won't be able to sleep. But dude, I think this is all good stuff. Speaking of good stuff, I hadn't even had a chance, right? One of the things I like to talk about every show is the jobs, right? The jobs that, every single week before we have the show, like a ritual, I go on and I look at LinkedIn about the job postings and, how building, I'm trying to build the suspense a little bit for the listeners. So what the actual results are incredibly positive. We were trending in a good direction from jobs, but literally it's been the best numbers that I've seen since we started the show. So across the board, whether I search for robotic process automation or process automation, RPA, UiPath, every single category, the numbers have been up. This is the first time that process automation, if you just look for the job process automation on LinkedIn, that this is the first time the numbers have been over 4,500 for the week. So, and then we're almost at 10,000, which I've never seen for monthly postings. So definitely still very consistent demand across the board. I would love to use, speaking of language models, use that to kind of, because there is some junk in there, right? Sometimes it'll be something related or not necessarily just RPA. So I want to do more research as I get more data, but just at face value, the trends are positive.
Yeah, and also start this research, and because then later on we can see the trends. Then we can see the graph. What is
absolutely.
Yeah. This is going to be a very awesome perspective.
Yeah, and that's sort of my thought too, because every day when I grab it, I'm grabbing the last week. I'm grabbing the last 24 hours. So how many jobs are posted in the last day, the last week, and the last month? The good thing about LinkedIn is they drop any job posting after 6 months. Even though I don't search back, I only go back 30 days. That's what I'm interested in. And they're rolling 30-day count. But they clean up their job postings too. Because I don't know if you've seen the news, but there's a lot of talk, and there's a term called ghost jobs, right? And that's a pretty controversial topic that I see on. So if you just search the term, right, you can definitely find new articles related to this. But basically what ghost jobs is there are jobs that people believe that companies post that they actually have no intention of filling. And so candidates, by the hundreds will apply for these positions, and then they won't actually, with a thought that they might be, get a job, but there's actually no job available. And there's lists of reasons why the job might be like that. Maybe there's some places that claim that companies do research, or they're trying to build a pool of candidates. So they'll post jobs and get a list of names. And then when they're ready, they have a pool to pick from. There's all sorts of different things that could be. But yeah, it's called ghost jobs.
Well, if I may interject here,
please.
Because I remember a few years ago, I was when I was applying for a few positions in many different places.
Yeah.
Mostly Europe. So I was trying to get a job from Brazil in Europe. And what I would do, I did just a few times to exactly do some research. I would create a position with my profile in the country that I want to apply for, just to see how my competitors were, just to get an idea about my competition. So people would apply to that job. I would get their resume, their profile, and I would compare myself against.
You're so smart, bro. Like I would have never thought to do that, right? So, what's even worse? Like that's brilliant. What you're doing is brilliant. Let me tell you why. Just from my perspective, right? Just why it's brilliant from my perspective. Because the opposite of what you do is what I've done in the past, and that's I will apply to jobs just to maintain an awareness of my competitiveness, right? I might not take the job, but I'll apply to the job to see if my background and my, what the experience that I have still are competitive, right? To get me the interview, and then I know I'm sort of gauging my value, right? And then if they and that's not necessarily to get like an offer letter to take back and try to negotiate a raise or anything, but the point is that's way much more work. I got to get dressed up. I got to actually apply, and to figure out if I'm still competitive when you just make the competition tell you directly, like, hey, are you still competitive?
But I don't do that anymore.
Neither do I. I haven't done it in 40 years.
It's not fair, because these people, they are trying to find a job, they see a position, and then they are wasting their time.
Oh, that's true. That's true. At least if I interview for a company and I don't accept the job, they definitely have like a second or a third pick. Right. Exactly. So that's very true. But at the same aspect, and then too, that's another thing too, when you even talk about people applying for jobs in this environment, and that's why I could never, do this anymore. And that's because, you have people that literally have just bots applying for them, right? They'll create an automation and they'll literally apply it to 1,000 jobs. And they literally have applications, like you can literally Google, there's a term for those, the resume the software that evaluates your resume to see if you're a candidate or not. When in the
ETS.
yeah, exactly, something like that, right? There's whatever it is. There's like literally, you can Google it. There's like software out there that will apply for it using your resume with the appropriate like language to try to get you through, right? So and then it'll apply to dozens. So you're just saying like there's so many people out there that are still like on the website applying with their keyboard. And it's just crazy, right? I don't know. We got Ghost Jobs took us on a tangent there, but this is all stuff that's real, right? It's real stuff occurring.
Yeah, you made me think because, and I had to pause a little bit to kind of sort it through.
Yeah,
because Ghost Jobs, it's not fair. But then if you see the other side of the coin, then you have the softwares where people are applying for everything without even seeing. On the other hand, you also have the softwares filtering those resumes, and you believe that when you apply that someone will at least see your
look
resume.
at it, right?
It doesn't happen 99% of the time, right? So when you get an interview, it's probably because you are a good fit for that position.
Yeah.
If you don't have a reference, right?
Yeah.
When you have a reference is different. Someone will just drop your resume on the table that the hiring manager. That's much easier. But without that, it's tough in this current situation.
So
with
true.
All these tools and AI. We've been talking about AI so much, right? And just today, I was in a webinar with this guy, Matthew Raisin, something like this. I forgot his name. I will share with you later. And his talk was about the ethics within AI.
Yeah, that's a big topic.
So many perspectives that I've never thought that were from all being good between humanity or human beings and AIs and machines as a whole.
Yeah.
And full dystopian reality where AI takes place and human race just vanishes from the face of the earth.
That's a huge concern, right? So two things to this, right? I think we touched on this in one episode, not in too detailed, but like what we see today in AI, and there's the concept called artificial general intelligence, right? Or AGI. And there's like half a dozen, if not probably I'm lying, there's probably a dozen different definitions of what AGI actually is. And so I do believe that there will be mass displacement of work, right? There's already this, I would love you to check this out too, right? There's already this concept, and if you're hearing this for the first time, definitely take a look. There's a concept called I5 or Industry 5, right? And if you talk about like industrialization and the verge of the internet and all of this, and you'll be able to tell this, you personally be able to tell this because you're in the software space. But what I5 or Industry 5 essentially means is that eventually everything will be autonomous, right? Industries will evolve and everything that pretty much everything, right? From the core, like farming, think industrial, like farming, think about fast food, like, yes, like literally fast food, the production of food products itself could be done through autonomous, like machines and robots. And so that's what people predict will occur and what they say is that how this occurs is it's not just one industry like IT and AI that are leading the charge here, right? There are advancements in agriculture, there are advancements in electronics and battery, right? All of these industries, insurance, are growing so rapidly that eventually they're all going to have technology and it'll be advanced and connected, right? Internet of Things and all of this, right? And so as those solutions get built, they'll start doing stuff that other things still do, right? You see that right now. SAP has an RPA software. Salesforce has an RPA software, right? Yeah. Like they're all going to be using AI and ML And that kind of cross-pollination or saturation where multiple things are going to be happening, that's going to be across industry, not just in the same industry eventually. And I think that if we do get to that, and if it's growing at the same pace it is, I'm not worried about necessarily yet the robots taking over and destroying things. I'm just worrying technology advances so quickly that there will continue to be job loss, and that it'll grow at a rate where we can't just simply continue to retrain or reskill people. There'll have to be like mass change, right? And so I'm worried about the dystopia occurring before the robots, chop our necks off. But I think that that's a totally another discussion. So yeah, it scares me. It scares me, to be honest.
Well, I got a little bit scared, to be honest. And the webinar that I was listening to was on this very direction, right?
Mm-hmm.
The displacement of jobs, because the evolution it's coming in such a high pace that people cannot keep up with.
Yes, exactly. There's a term in there too called tech lag. You can Google it, tech lag, and that's literally the scenario you're talking about too, right? Humans, like just humans and our brains are not evolving as quick as our technology, and so we don't know how to use it. And so we're using it, but we're probably, here's a crazy thought, Joe. Like all the stuff that we're doing. The craziest thing is we're not doing it right? I've made this argument too when it comes to RPA and how people build bots and deliver the services, and like we're doing the best we can and we're kind of following other people's examples, but I guarantee you that none of us are doing it the best way it can be done, because the best way it can be done hasn't been built yet, right? We're trying to figure out that model. And so
but how can we decide that we are doing the best way we can?
I think
ultimately,
yeah, that's very good.
The latest version is always the best we can. But then later on we figured out something better.
No, again, let me explain too. Let me peel back the onion a little bit more to be specific. So let me just give you an example. I bet that 80-90% of the bots that are deployed in UiPath licensing are built using the reframework. Right. Mm-hmm. And the 20% that aren't are probably because people don't know about the reframework. And I would go out and I will bet a whole paycheck right now that somebody can scientifically prove that they have a better model, both from a quality and execution and availability, than the reframework. So that's what I mean. So while the software, we might be using the correct version, how we apply it and like our reframework and how we build bots and stuff, that's what I meant, is like, I don't think anybody's building, we're doing the best we can, but I don't think anybody's built the best reframework or the best architecture yet, right? Who knows? The field might be evolving so quickly that by the time someone gets some amazing framework that just bots don't break, like we're not using it anymore.
Yeah,
that makes you think. See, that has to make you think a little bit, Joe.
Yeah, definitely. And I have a very limited opinion on this, because this whole thing is so new. Because I am one of those trying to upskill themselves.
Yeah. Oh man.
Up to a couple of years ago, I was like core developer.
Yeah.
Not a couple of years, but a few years ago, I was a core developer, back-end developer, and I hated front end. Right, I didn't want to create screens or buttons or shadows or transitions. I hate that. And then I found myself working with RPA and all this cool stuff. And now it's not only core RPA anymore. We've been talking about this, right? Is RPA dead? Now I have to upskill again, right? I have to learn AI, and I have to learn large language models. I have to learn all these new things that when I get there, what else I will have to learn? So it's exactly what we are talking, right?
So true.
I don't know if I can keep up with the space.
Man, dude, you're dropping these crazy bombs on me right now, because like, as you say that, I'm trying to think, I'm trying to picture in my head, because I feel like the pace of innovation that's happening with IT, like all the other industries got to be moving fast too, right? Like so I'd imagine that
let's pause for a second.
Yeah.
Let's take the automobile industry.
There we go. Thank you. I was trying to pick something specific.
Well, if we see the latest and greatest inventions they have, man, those cars can literally do such a great things. Like I was about to say fly, but then it wouldn't be a car anymore, right? It would be a
New word. They have invented that word, cars that can
yeah.
fly.
But man, I'm not such a car fan, so I don't know the latest coolest features that they have. But I see videos hidden there, and such mind blowing, right? They are literally taken to another level that we couldn't imagine 10 years ago. So very, very shallow opinion on this. I would say that some industries are moving very, very fast.
Yeah. Yeah. So then that was my thought, that they have to be moving as quick as IT, right? So like all of those spaces, right? Being a mechanic doesn't mean that they would have meant probably 10, 15 years ago, right? I know the part of the answer to that question, because my sister, her husband, he works as a senior person at a auto dealership for Audi. And recently they're partnered with Porsche, and they use the same premium battery technology, right? The same basically build. And it's a completely different maintenance process for the electric car. They have their own, Audi certified electric mechanics, right? So yeah, to your point, yeah, every industry is kind of moving rapidly. And I think that, that's kind of, the more that I think about it, it's like you send your kid to college, to learn something. Like, what do you send your kid to college for? They send them to, even if it's computer science. So, I mean, yeah, that's definitely an interesting.
Yeah. So that sends us back to the upskilling and the whole AI shenanigan, right? Because it's not just a matter of upskilling ourselves. Because when we say that the technology is evolving so rapidly, not even the institutions will be able to upskill the whole population, right? How are the schools going to prepare kids for such a greater technology? There's no way the schools can keep up. If we go to universities or colleges right now, how many grad programs we are going to find in AI that are up to date? Right?
Yeah,
they may have some courses related here and there, small labs and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But how many full programs in AI that are going to prepare for today's date? I don't believe there's many.
They're not. Do you want to know how so this is why I figured out this information too, because I think 3 years ago, like right after the pandemic was ending and part of the end of the pandemic, I went and started researching I was looking to go into grad school again. I wanted to get like and my objective and what I wanted to get into is computer vision, right? It just fascinates me. Whether it's, used for self-driving cars, right? Computer vision is what's used to, maintain the cars on the road, or the computer vision that UiPath uses where it's able to identify stuff on a screen, right? Yeah. All this stuff is fascinating, and I've even messed around with it. But what I wanted to do, at the point of my career I am at right now, the first thing people ask about going to grad school is like ROI. It's like ROI. I'm going to spend all this ridiculous amount of money to put myself through school, and what's going to be the return? And it was a very hard thing to justify in my sense, right? Like once you get to a certain level, it's not like it's going to really all of a sudden bring me in all sorts of money. So it had to be the right thing, right? And I didn't want to go to school and pay my own money to learn computer vision that something that had been used 10 years ago. And to your point, I did extensive research, and I only found 2 schools in the entire country at that point 3 years ago that had legitimate high-level computer vision, specifically, AI programs focused on computer vision. And I'm thinking like, dude, as many all the automobile industry that you touched on, everybody wanting to have self-driving technology, they're all working on it. and to see that only two two schools in the U.S. had some sort of program where they could actually learn this skill, and who knows how dated it was, right? So I really felt that that's definitely a point proven right there. It's not just the whole world education system is behind even trying to train the next generation to be prepared for the workforce that's there,
Exactly. Totally agree with you. And that's just one institution that we are talking about. Not one institution specifically, but the education system, right? It's just one level. But then we have banks, financial industry. We have the government. We have
that's a whole
security,
can.
homeland security. Imagine the police, right? There's so many technologies, good technologies for them, but how can they keep up with everything?
How can you afford it to keep up, right? It's some of these institutes, it's not. And that's one of the biggest issues, I think, with the software still today, right? As great as these tools are, as wonderful as these tools, can be to really change an organization's direction, how are small and medium-sized businesses ever going to afford, 50, 20 UiPath production bots, or with Orchestrator, and, how are they going to afford a $400,000 spend, when they got 300 employees or 500 employees? It's not the same, right? Having serviced lots of organizations of varying sizes, like their conversations are different with every organization. Some don't care. Like they are so tech driven. They don't care if it's $1 million. They'll say for what? Here you go. And it's not a second thought. And some organizations, like literally you can show them as soon as we deliver this automation, for the next 12 months it's in flight, it will save you $2 million. And here's the cost, the license and the services to build it, $200,000. I'm making the number up. That's clearly a $1.8 million, flip.
Savings.
And it will take organizations a year to make that decision.
Yeah.
And meanwhile,
they're cautious, right? Yeah. They're not so smart sometimes.
Lots of times. Hey, if you're an executive and you watch this show, right, we have a genuine question. And that's like, what does drive organizations for the slow turnaround time or the hesitation when there's a clear value proposition? I'm interested. Is it just cost, right? Is it literally that the expense of the software is too much even when the value's there for them to commit because other things are more important? I'm genuinely interested, right? Because I've had this conversation. One of the very good pleasures of working at my previous role, TSP, and leading their practice is over the course of a year and a half, I must have spoken with 100+ organizations, senior executives, right? And every single call, you understand where they're at. You have a set of questions. I want to know what your program's like. How many licenses you have? What's the scale? Who owns it? How many develop? All this kind of information. So it's a huge sample size to understand what journey they're on and what their priorities are. So it still boggles me to my brain sometimes. But at the same point, I even asked the question to start that rant, right? I said, how can we service small and medium-sized businesses? Is it the cost? So I went down that rabbit hole myself. What are your thoughts on that little rant, Joe?
I was getting my thoughts around a session that I had with another MVPs. I can talk about that because it's
live.
It's online already.
I saw it. Nice session. Yeah. I loved it.
So Jeffrey was talking that
great guy, by the way.
Oh yeah, something that I've never thought, because I am in a huge organization, right? So if whatever automation we make is going to save tons of money, right? Because the scalability, because there are thousands of users that are going to leverage that. So it may save like half an hour for one person a day, but when you scale that for 1,000 people, it's 500 hours per day, right? So it's a huge saving. But he was on the opposite side because his corporation, it's very small. So they have to pick the right use case to have something worth doing, right? If they don't get the right use case, they are just spending time with with no reason.
No, that's something incredible too, right? And if you're in this position too, I have something to share with you, right? If you're a small or medium sized business, or I've even met with people at these conferences where they own their own consultancy, right? They only have a few people and they're trying to leverage this technology, and that's one of the first questions they ask, because the price it comes up. These people literally asking me. I don't know if it was the background with Jolt or what, but when they talk about this thing, what I tell, and I give everybody the same advice, is that if you're a small or medium-sized business, or the ROI and the cost of it is more than you want to stomach, then there's a very simple solution. As Joe mentioned, what you should be doing is prioritizing your biggest use case, your biggest ROI that you have available to tackle. And try to find one that's a quick win if you can, that doesn't take months of development. But find the use case with the biggest ROI and develop that on the UiPath community license. Don't put it into production. Don't put it into production. That's against the user agreement. You could try it, but I wouldn't recommend it. But what that will do is you will be able to demonstrate that let me execute this for you in QA for a week. You can see it perform on the community license, and you can guarantee that it'll be fine, and you'll roll it out. And as soon as you roll it out, it'll be starting to save you money. And then at that point, once you've seen and improved the value and you have it built, then you pay for the license and deploy the solution, right? And you'll instantly be generating value for what you spent. So what do you think about that thought, Joe?
No, that's definitely a good idea, because you don't spend much money up front, and you can see the value before having to sign any contracts or having to put any checks or whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Probably it's more matter of spending time, because someone is going to have to build that solution.
Yeah.
And then once you realize, then it's go time, right? Then you just buy the license. But at that time, you are ready to go. You know how much you're going to save.
Exactly. You know what the cost is versus the savings. 200%. And if you don't have the developer and you got it, like Joey said, you still got to build it. I don't care what size organization. You got at least 100 people in your company. There's somebody that would be interested in a low-code tool that would be interested in building it. Right. Yeah. I don't know. Definitely you got to test the hell out of that. I ain't trying to put, new dev, stuff into production. I did myself back at SWBC as an analyst, right? I wasn't even a developer at that. And I was building bots and pushing them in production myself, Joe. We didn't have no QA. We just ran them. Oh, man. Hey, but I would not recommend that for anybody. So, I mean, But no, I think that's, but I would, again, like Joe said, recommend community license, prove out your value. Once you confirm, you see it's going to work, then deliver it. But environments change, Joe, and maintenance is a thing, right? I would love, as we go on the top of the hour, one of the things I've noticed that's just been consistent throughout my career, and I can't wait till we fix this, but bots break. They just do.
All the time.
Yeah, and thank you. I wanted to say that. I was going to say bots break all the time. I don't want to scare people, but it just, a decade in, it happens. Like bots break. They just break, and so there's maintenance costs. So I'd love to get your opinion, Joe, on that.
Yeah, it's not bots are not exclusive on this, right? Yeah. Software as a whole breaks all the time.
Yep.
And people may not notice that because they are end users, and it doesn't get up to them. But we are from the tech world. We know how much things break.
Yeah.
And I used to work on the support many years.
Tell them.
Man, it was like nightmares every day, every night. Sometimes day and night. Sometimes crisis call over the week, whole week. Talking to people all over the world and trying to find a problem and not getting there. So the bots are just an expansion of that, because what the bot is doing is just using or leveraging applications that we as a user use do, right?
Yeah.
And those applications also break. So if a bot is using one, two, or three applications in an automation, and one of that applications breaks or even changes, that can break the bot.
Yep.
And then what is going to happen? The bot's going to break.
Yeah.
And definitely the support of the bot is really important.
Yes.
What's the word? Not maintenance. Oh man, just forgot the word.
No, you're spot on though. Like
Go
support
ahead.
and maintenance are just they're so important, right? But that's you ended exactly with the question that I had in mind, where I was trying to lead the listener, right? What I was trying to lead the listener to is like you have the license, you can use the community to demonstrate your value. You can deploy it and pay for it, but that's not where the show stops, right? Bots do break if you don't have some type of maintenance or support. Like you're going to be in a bad position. But what I have, to close out this topic, I think that this topic is so fascinating. I would love to just do one session when one of the ones we don't have a guest, and I want us to just deep dive in service models and approaches, right? I would love to just kind of just talk about production and support, right? Because that's
awesome.
Because
I love that.
because like my thought is like we were just talking about how is reframework the right, is it even the way? So I would love to just, let's peel back the curtain. Let's talk about production and support. I know we have a guest next week. I'm excited, so we won't do it then. But when we get one of those sessions by ourselves, I would love to dive into the support thing. But what I would ask you though, before I forget, is that we were honest and said, hey, bots break. They break quite frequently. We were very transparent with that a second ago. But we didn't touch on this, and so this is my opinion, and I want to know if you think I'm right or wrong here. Bots may break, but 90% of the time, it's an incredibly quick fix. It's not like, if a selector breaks or assuming it's not the application, right? If it's a process related problem and it's a business exception, right? And the bot just can't, that's not on the fault of the bot. But if the bot code breaks and it can't operate, generally it's some type of, pop up that it didn't consider or something. But my point is my question to you is I think even when they do break, it's not like something that's going to take a week, to fix or bring back online. Am I bullshitting here, or do you agree with that?
To some extent, I agree. Mm-hmm. It depends because the governance, the word that I was trying to find before.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Yep.
The governance is going to change from company to company.
True.
Now, let's go back to the one you were saying, the medium to small companies. They may or may not, but potentially they will have a much more flexible approach to deploy from dev to prod. Even some of them even allow the development on the production environment, right?
Yeah.
Or at least the developer access to the production environment,
it's
which
the
is
same.
Make things much faster. So I agree to your point that usually the breaks are easier to fix. Mm-hmm. It's a button that changes the position or changes the text.
Yep.
It's a pop-up that it's new or someone didn't see before during the design and the development.
Yeah.
And then it's just a matter of mapping that new pop-up or recreating the selector and stuff like that.
Yep. Yeah, definitely never too crazy. That's what I think. But I feel like there was some hesitation there, though. I feel like there was like, what scenarios have you experienced some that's like, I guess maybe your thought too was that some organizations, even just the process to fix it and put it in, it might be simple, right? Because you don't have the restriction where you're a large company and now there's the whole like, I got to test it. I got to push the change request in. Then I got to release it. Yeah.
That's where I don't agree because even though it's a small fix, it's just a pop-up that you have to click.
Yeah.
You have to bring it back to the development environment. You have to follow the full
SDLC
life cycle, software development life cycle. You have to get it tested. You have to get the change, the change for request for change. then the whole shenanigan of getting approved and so on and so forth. That sometimes, depending on how fast you want to apply the change, the approval can go up to the sky. Right?
Yeah.
You may need to have a senior executive approval.
Yeah, absolutely. So even like being a member of a very large organization myself, right? There's like blackout periods, right, where you can't push code. So if there's some situation where you want to push code, unless you want to reach out to the CIO, you know what I'm saying? And I don't want to send that email, right? But Joe, I'm going to leave you with this little tip, right? As we get close to the end of the session, if you're an organization and you're large like this and you have a scenario where you've got a lot of lead time to push changes into production and you have to go through some of that red tape, what I have found to be effective in my past organizations is work with the change management and the release management group, come up with a list of a category of changes that you are authorized to push yourself, right? And how you do that is you classify based off risk. Just like Joe mentioned, there's certain stuff, if I'm making a payment or I'm sending an email to my customer, right, that's a pretty high risk. And I don't want to push a change unless it's went through the entire process. But you can agree with change management. I've seen it done in organizations. They'll agree to a category of changes where you don't have to go through the big pipeline. You still got to submit a ticket, but there's no review process. They'll allow you. They respect your knowledge that you are not doing anything that will put them in jeopardy. And as long as you keep your team, your production team within that box, they're not stuck by red tape. They can handle some selector changes or a pop-up. They just submit the ticket still and they push it to production. They send it to the QA team and then it gets released. So that's just a little strategy you can use.
Yeah, that's a very important and interesting topic to dive into. ServiceNow allows users to create what they call standard changes, right? Which is a type of request for change that kind of expedite, or they do assess this standard change. They do all the risk assessment and get all the approvals, saying every change related to this application or to this
category or whatever
category, we are good to approve. Like it's in some ways it's a blank approval.
Yep.
Right. It's not a blank approval, but it's a blank approval.
It's just for that stuff. It is. Yeah. Similar. That's what I'm talking about.
They still have to follow the SDLC process where you have to go back to dev, test, and then deploy. But it's much faster because the approval section and the lead time is much easier.
Joe, Adobe, see, like I gave him a tip. You called it a blanket approval, or now nobody's gonna do it. You scared him, or you scared any? It's very true though. Like that's to define it. That's the correct way to define it. I'm just busting your chops though. That's very true.
Yeah, but the accountability is there.
Yeah,
right?
Governance too. If you have the governance as well.
As you pointed out, very truthful, very correct. Let's use that word. You have to talk to the change management team. Each company will have a different process, a different naming. It may not be standard change, maybe something else.
Yep.
They definitely requirements change everywhere, and
true.
Yeah, have a talk to them and see what they think.
Yeah, and I think that if you're transparent, and I believe that if there's any resistance to you trying to come up with that strategy, it's probably due to a lack of awareness of what UiPath, Automation Anywhere, whatever tool you're using, insert there. It's probably a lack of awareness of what you're doing. So yeah, I agree. Have those conversations. That's the part I left out, right? Don't be writing your own blank approvals and just approving them yourself. That's not what we mean here. Have a conversation with change management, the release board, make sure your ducks in a row. Don't try to push anything crazy because that'll get your team burned. But if you're experiencing some of that red tape that Joe was mentioning, this is definitely a way to kind of alleviate that. Man, Joe, I think we covered a lot of stuff, man.
Yeah, so great, man. I love it. I love it. I would sit here for another hour.
To be honest, it's weird. I literally bought 3 beers, you know, because the week was so long. I highly intended to drink all 3 of them, and I'm not even finished with the second. So, you know, first of all, thank you, sir, for helping me unplug from the long week that has been, you know, and getting my mind off of everything. I needed this. Apparently I didn't need the beer. I just needed a conversation with Joe, and life just got better. So.
No, man, thank you, and I appreciate it. But I know where you are going to. So
Yeah.
as we are wrapping up this show, because it's on the top of the hour, I want to just give a shout out.
Do
Because
it.
We are not a shout out. I just want to share. Actually,
Yes.
We are increasing our reach.
Oh,
So,
yes.
right, this week I shared some emails with you, but yeah, I was working on Spotify because this show, after we finish the live, we work on the video and the audio, and then we release on Spotify. And this week I was working with other platforms, so we are already on Amazon Music
Yes.
and also iRadio.
Oh, I love it. I saw it, dude. I wish.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, right? So here is a situation where Joe is ahead of Jeremy, because if I wasn't leaving with Joe, I would have some sort of clapping or cheers sound effects that I could press right now. Yeah, excited. So Joe putting in the overtime. That is right. Catch us live on your favorite streaming app, whether it's, you know, iHeartRadio, Amazon, Spotify, YouTube. Look us up. We're not stopping anytime soon, Joe. We are not stopping. Hey, I'm going to kick off this music. What I would like everybody to know is that Joe and I are continuing the plan. And depending on how motivated we get, there's a chance we might even be crazy and do a Boots to Bots from Vegas. Maybe.
Yeah.
If we get excited. But anyway, go ahead, Joe. What do you got?
Oh, one last thought.
Yeah.
Earlier today, I was talking to Diana. We were in a meeting before you joined the meeting.
Yeah.
You joined late and the MVP meeting, and she was actually asking me if I wanted to do a live not a live set. She said, "Oh, I'm going to have a booth on MVP on Forward. So if you guys want to be there for an hour talking about your experience." And then I said, "Oh, we can do better, right? We can do a live session from there."
Joe, are you telling me that bots, I'm doing what she did, because she said beer at the end. She was like bears and bots.
Yeah.
So, dude, speaking of that, I absolutely love Diana Gray. If you guys are listening to the podcast, check her out on LinkedIn. She is a true treasure. It sounds like bots and beers might be headed to Vegas. That is awesome, brother.
Yeah.
I can't believe it. That's cool. Dude, we're going to have so much content. I'm excited. But, Joe, like a good husband, I should get out of here and go meet with the family. Sir.
Exactly. Me too.
Loved having this conversation.
Bro,
is it Thursday yet?
Yeah.
Not yet. To all of our friends and everybody listening after the case, thank you so much for your support. Joe and I, guaranteed, back next week. Love you, Joe. Have a good one, friend.
You too.